If they miss you, why don't they text you? It's the question that haunts your quiet nights. You wonder if they think of you like you think of them. You wonder if the silence means they've forgotten, or if they're just as torn as you are. But here's the truth. They might miss you, but missing you and respecting you are two very different things. Some people miss you only when you're no longer available to them. They miss the comfort, the attention, the emotional safety you used to give them for free. But they don't reach out, because reaching out would mean owning their part, taking accountability, admitting they lost something real. And that's not easy for the kind of person who let you go in the first place. So they sit in silence, hoping you'll break first, hoping your love will override your dignity. But you don't. And that's where your power begins to rise. Because if someone truly values you, they won't let their ego stand in the way. They won't gamble with losing you forever. Silence doesn't always mean peace. It often means pride is louder than love. And if someone can miss you and still not speak, that silence speaks for itself. It tells you they're not ready to be honest, vulnerable, or consistent. Missing someone is easy. Reaching out requires courage. So don't romanticize their silence. Don't give it meaning it doesn't deserve. If they truly missed you in a way that mattered, you'd know. Not through overthinking, not through late-night tears, but through action. Because real love doesn't hide behind silence. It shows up. And if they won't, then maybe the silence you're hearing is your closure. Now, let's discuss in detail. Number 1, missing you doesn't mean they've grown. It's easy to believe that if someone misses you, it means they've changed, that they finally understand your worth. But here's the harsh truth. Missing you doesn't equal maturity. People can miss your warmth, your presence, your support, without ever realizing how they took it all for granted. Sometimes they miss you because life got quiet, or lonely, or inconvenient. Not because they've had an epiphany, not because they've grown, but because they lost their emotional safety net. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you that tolerated the late replies, the confusion, the half-love. The one who stayed even when they gave you every reason to walk away. What they really miss is the comfort of having someone who loved them even when they were hard to love. But you're not that version of yourself anymore. You've done the work. You've felt the heartbreak. You've cried those private tears and decided you're not living in emotional limbo anymore. That version of you is gone, and what they feel now isn't a sign to reopen the door. It's proof they feel your absence, not your value. Real growth takes responsibility. It takes change. It takes effort. And if they're still silent, if they still don't have the courage to reach out sincerely, it's because deep down they know they haven't earned access to the new you. They haven't done the inner work to deserve a response. So when you ask yourself, if they miss me, why don't they text? Remember this. It's not about you. It's about who they haven't yet become. Number 2, they're waiting for you to break first. When communication stops, a silent war begins, one that's not fought with words, but with patience, ego, and power. Many people don't reach out first, not because they've moved on, but because they want to see, if you will. They're watching, waiting, hoping you'll be the one to crack under the silence just like you used to. Because if you text first, it means they still have you. They don't have to take responsibility. They don't have to be vulnerable. They win without effort. This is not love. This is not care. This is manipulation hiding behind a passive face. It's pride in disguise. They want comfort, but without the risk of rejection. They want you to soothe the tension they created. It's a twisted game of emotional chess, and they're counting on you to make the first move. But you're not playing anymore. You've grown past that. You're not addicted to breadcrumbs or driven by desperation. You no longer need to prove your worth by chasing silence. You're choosing dignity. You're choosing self-control. And that changes everything. Because true connection doesn't care who texts first. It cares why they do. It's not about ego. It's about intention. And if their silence is a strategy, your silence is strength. So the next time you feel tempted to break the silence just to break the tension, ask yourself, do I want peace? Or do I want pride games? Because silence doesn't always mean loss. Sometimes it means power. You're not losing them. You're refusing to lose yourself. Number 3, their silence is their answer. You stare at your phone. You check their social media. You replay conversations. You keep asking yourself, if they miss me, why won't they just say something? But the brutal, unfiltered truth is this: silence is communication. It's not empty. It's not neutral. It's loud in its own quiet way. And often it says more than words ever could. Maybe they're not emotionally mature enough to reach out. Maybe they're afraid of confrontation. Maybe they're hoping you'll make the first move, just like you always have. Or maybe they simply don't care as deeply as you hoped they did. Either way, the result is the same. They're not here. They're not showing up. They're not fighting for you. And that silence, it's not confusion. It's clarity. It tells you what you've been too hurt to admit. That if someone can stay away from you without even checking in, their feelings aren't strong enough to honor yours, and you need to stop interpreting that absence as mystery. It's not a puzzle to solve. It's not a test to pass. It's your answer. You deserve someone who speaks up, not someone who disappears. You deserve love that moves toward you, not away from you. And when someone chooses silence, let them. Let that be their final act. Let it free you instead of haunt you. Because the people who want to stay in your life really stay, don't hide behind silence. They show up with truth. So hear the silence. Believe what it's saying, and walk away with your dignity intact. Number 4, texting you means facing you. Sometimes silence isn't about indifference, it's about avoidance. And the reason they haven't texted you might have very little to do with how much they miss you, and everything to do with how much they fear confronting the truth. Because texting you doesn't just mean saying hello, it means facing their guilt. It means facing the way they left things, the way they hurt you, the way they let you down. To send that message would mean opening the door to accountability, and for many people that's terrifying. It's easier to miss you from a distance than to deal with the mirror you hold up to them. Because you were real, you loved deeply, you gave your best, and they know it. Deep down, they know you deserved better, but acknowledging that would mean admitting they failed you. It would mean looking themselves in the eye and seeing their own immaturity, their emotional laziness, their inability to grow. So, they don't text. Not because they've moved on, but because reaching out would mean taking responsibility, and not everyone is ready to be that honest. Not with you, and certainly not with themselves. And here's where your strength comes in. Don't mistake that silence as a sign of your lack of worth. Their avoidance doesn't reflect your value, it reveals their limits. It shows you that your presence in their life required a level of emotional depth they weren't willing to meet. Let that be your closure. You're not meant to chase people who run from truth. You're not meant to wait for someone to grow courage that may never come. If they can't face you, they can't love you in the way you deserve to be loved. Their silence is not rejection. It's redirection, away from pain toward peace. Number 5, you're no longer their emotional backup. For a long time, they didn't have to worry about losing you. because no matter how many times they pulled away, acted cold, or ignored your feelings, you were still there. You checked in, you forgave. You gave them chance after chance, even when they gave you uncertainty in return. You were their emotional backup, never their first choice, but always their fallback. And they got comfortable with that. They didn't need to text you because they assumed you'd eventually text them. But silence changes things. The moment you stopped reaching out, the moment you stopped being emotionally available, that's when the air around them shifted. Not immediately, not dramatically, but slowly. They began to feel the absence of something they always thought would be there. You weren't just their ex, or their almost. You were their comfort zone. And now, that zone is gone. And here's the truth. They didn't miss you because they loved you. They missed you because they lost the emotional cushion you always gave them. You were the one who carried the emotional weight of the relationship. You soothed the tensions. You chased resolution. You kept things from breaking. But now, you've changed the game. You walked away, not to punish them, but to finally protect yourself. When you stop being someone's emotional backup, something powerful happens. You create space. Space for peace. Space for clarity. And more importantly, space for someone who doesn't need to be reminded of your worth. Someone who sees it from day one. Never forget, being someone's safety net might feel like love, but it's really self-abandonment. And the day you stop playing that role is the day you finally reclaim your value. They didn't text because they thought you'd stay forever. Now they're silent for a different reason. They know you're gone. Number 6. They want to know you're still available. They might not text you, but that doesn't mean they're not watching. You notice the pattern. They're the first to view your stories. They randomly like an old post. They share vague quotes or emotional updates that feel suspiciously aimed at you. But when it comes to reaching out directly, silence. Why? Because they don't want to reconnect. They want reassurance. They want to know if they still have emotional access to you, without having to do the real work of rebuilding the connection. This isn't love. This is a power play. They're testing your reaction. Will you respond to the bait? Will you view their story and message them? Will you interpret their cryptic post and take it as a sign to re-engage? That's what they're counting on. They want to keep you emotionally tethered, close enough to feel seen, but far enough to avoid responsibility. But here's where your strength is tested. If you take the bait, you restart the cycle. You hand them proof that they still hold space in your mind. And worse, you reward their passivity with attention. But if you stay silent, if you stay grounded in your self-worth, something shifts. They're left in confusion. They begin to question if you've really moved on. Let them wonder, because someone who truly wants to be in your life doesn't play guessing games. They don't use breadcrumbs to keep you emotionally starving. They show up with clarity, intention, and effort. This phase is where your silence becomes your armor. When it's rooted in self-respect, not revenge, it becomes the clearest message you could ever send. You're no longer emotionally available for half-effort love or control disguised as longing. Let them watch, let them question, but don't respond. Because true power isn't in how loud you are, it's in how quietly you protect your peace. Number 7. They can't handle the new you. You've changed, and not in some loud, dramatic way, but in the quiet, steady way that shakes people at their core. You're healing, you're detaching, you're reclaiming your self-worth, one boundary at a time. And the version of you that used to beg for answers, apologize for existing, or break just to keep others whole, that version no longer exists. And they feel it. They feel it in your silence, in the way you don't reach out, in the way you no longer react to their subtle provocations. You used to be emotionally available on demand, always ready to explain, to fix, to forgive. Now, you've gone inward. You've started choosing peace over patterns, and that terrifies them. Not because they don't care, but because they know they no longer control the narrative. They stay silent, not because they're strong, but because they're intimidated. Because to reach out now would mean facing someone they no longer have power over. Someone who doesn't flinch when they pull away. Someone who doesn't orbit around their inconsistency. Someone who finally sees through the cycles and refuses to repeat them. Your growth forces them to confront a truth they don't want to face. You're no longer who you were when they had access to you. And here's the thing, they don't know how to respond to that. So, they don't. Not because they've moved on, but because they don't know how to handle someone who finally respects themselves. Let that silence confirm your progress. Let it remind you that healing isn't always about getting people back. It's about getting yourself back. And if your evolution scares them, so be it. Growth will always threaten those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. So don't shrink back just to make them comfortable. You didn't come this far to be small again. Your silence is not rejection, it's a revolution. Keep going. If they miss you and still don't text, it's not your problem to solve. Stop filling in their silence with your overthinking. Stop assigning meaning to what's really just avoidance. People who care show up. People who value you don't leave you guessing. Let them miss you. Let them wonder. And most importantly, let them go. Because peace doesn't come from someone finally texting back. It comes from finally realizing you don't need them to.